Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to Second Story. Thank you guys so much for coming out. This is an awesome Sunday night crowd. Just so you know what's going on, we have wine flights available, obviously, this evening. You can feel free to order one from your bartender, Tanya, or your server, Erica, both very lovely ladies. And music-wise, we have a very special thanks and a very special welcome to our guests this evening, DJ Malik and Mad Pros. You'll be listening to them all night long. And feel free to check out our website, www.serendipitytheater.org, and that's theater with an R-E, not an E-R. And last but not least, the stories will be starting in a couple of minutes here, so have some fun, have some wine, have some conversation, and enjoy your night. Thanks for coming out, guys.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm going to toast our first wine of the evening. It's from Chateau Taquet Oni, Lancôme Bargassoni from France. It's a crisp, refreshing white from the land of the Three Musketeers. Underneath the bright lime rind and ripe melon flavors, there are shades of richer nougat, lanolin, and almond. This is a cool chance to taste a dry wine made from varietals usually saved to make cognac. Cheers. As far as I'm concerned, going to bed only to get back up again while it's dark outside is just a cruel joke to play on yourself. But on this cold December morning with the sunrise still an hour away, I was on my way to my new job. You see, at 25 years of age, the pressure of living up to my parents' expectations were quickly beginning to mount. Fairly common were the markers of achievement. Ride a bike, get good grades, don't date losers. Go to college, get a great job, and walk down the aisle. By the time I had reached 25, I was halfway there. I could ride a bike. My grades were all right. I had a college education, but as far as having a great job, it was more like just broke up with a loser and just moved back home and have no job. When I moved back home at 25, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do next. I began to dream of starting my own company, maybe even opening my own photo studio. It was a risky plan and certainly not a solid one, but I decided I was going to give it a shot. And that's when I approached my dad. You're kidding me, right? No, Dad, I'm really serious. But you have no idea what you're getting into. But Dad, I know I have what it takes. But Julie, you're used to working in an office. But Dad, you said your company was hiring, and I know it pays a lot. Julie, you wouldn't last 2 days at my job. Fine, Dad, then give me 2 days. The next morning, I was on my way to my first day as a pipe cover. The only thing standing between me and my own photo studio was some itchy insulation and hard labor. Now, in case you're not familiar with the description of an insulator, Local 110 describes pipe covers as those who protect people, businesses, and the environment by ensuring pipes, vessels, tanks, and other commercial and industrial equipment are protected by the heat and frost elements. Now, I'm pretty sure if my grandfather was still alive, he'd be able to elaborate on this definition because up until his retirement at age 65, he was also a pipe cover. I have to admit, up until this point in my life, I was pretty unfamiliar with the duties of a pipe cover because most of my work had taken place in an office as a temp. Most of my assignments didn't require me to use my mind or be highly skilled in any way. I often got placed as a receptionist, which pretty much required that people like me. And because I was the outsider, I usually found that people took an interest in me. I was the newbie, dressed in my sensible shoes, my black slacks, my sleeveless shirt under a sweater that I'd only take off in the afternoons. I spent my days dreaming about lunch, what I was going to have, what everybody else was going to have, whether it was healthy to crave Taco Bell as much as I did. Now, I don't know what it is about the office environment that fueled this urge, but it seemed every day at 11:45 I would have to make a run for the border. But anyways, this was my life. I confused the artist lost in the trenches of Tempel. But on this morning, there was no sweater tank top combo, no sensible shoes, no coffee from Starbucks. Instead, I sported some tattered jeans, put my coffee in a thermos, laced up my construction boots, and wore a do-rag in my hair. Yes, I had all the accessories of construction worker Barbie. My first stop was to the safety trailer, where I had to fill out my paperwork, get my credentials, basically learn how not to kill myself or anyone else while on the job. Now I have to tell you that not being a big fan of extreme sports, I I've never been a fan of recreation that requires an 8-hour class on how not to die while doing it. But in this case, I was getting paid and my reputation was on the line. As the film began to roll, so did I. Everyone in this film was blowing up. I couldn't believe my eyes. In this world, a spark of static was enough to bring down an entire factory. Any piece of metal hanging from the ceiling was going to impale you right in the eye. Not to mention the falling off scaffolding in the mere one misstep that would hurl you to your death. After it was over, I was ready to hurl, but hurling is not an option when you're a girl in a man's world. Neither is crying. And it's safe to say that I did do both of these, but because it took place in the ladies' room, nobody knew it until now. As I sucked up my coffee and its last bit of warm goodness, I stepped out into the cold and into my father's world. This was a place I had never been before. Now, I didn't have to wait long for my ride to show up. Today I'd be working with Joe. And while my Joe and my father had been in the business for a long time, I could tell immediately that my father and Joe were very different. And to start with, Joe was older and jollier than my dad. Maybe that was due to the fact that he was close to retirement. Joe liked to hunt, fish, talk about his grandkids, and go on and on about these long camping trips he takes without his wife. My own dad is not the hunting and fishing type. He's more of your golf and stay in a hotel kind of guy. And for as long as I've been alive, he's never gone anywhere without my mom. And there's a good reason, because one time when I was 8, she let him go off-roading with her brothers, and he came back with a leg full of gravel. While I was getting the story of Joe's life, he was showing me around. This particular site was a lab that produced drugs, developed other medical necessities. It seemed very much like a hospital, but there were no patients to cure, just diseases. Half the inhabitants wore lab coats, the other half wore hard hats. And as we walked through the glass halls, I took in the sights. Each lab had its own inhabitants that I began to be familiar with over time. The clutter, familiar. Plants, trolls, motivational posters, personalized mugs. I had seen all this stuff at the time. As we reached the top floors, things slowly began to change. We stepped behind a set of closed doors that read, "Do not enter." And all I could think was Star Wars. Beneath my feet was a vented catwalk. Above me, silver and white ducks. To my sides were loud machines, whirring and ticking. Oh God, my mind flashed back to the safety video. Be careful, I thought in my head. One false move and it would all be over. Then Joe introduced me to fire spitting machine. Yeah, that's the technical term, the fire spitting machine. Actually, it was this gun that spitted fire attached to a machine that was shaking violently. He began to pound away at the poor defenseless heat duct. Kapow, kapow, kapow. Okay, now it's your turn. He handed me over the fire spitter like he was passing the ketchup. Right. Shit myself. No, I mean, where was I qualified to work a fire spitter on my first day? My first day. It's my first hour of my first day. And here I was on a catwalk behind locked doors, gun in my hand, and trusted with the safety of the entire building, and getting ready to shoot fire. As I squinted my eyes and I squeezed the trigger, kapow! I had welded my first pin. Okay, Joe said, it looks like you've got the hang of it. I'll be back after lunch. Just follow the duck all the way down. Get the ceiling. Don't forget way up there, and don't forget to get underneath, and I'll see you later. And just like that, Joe's gone. Before I could even ask a question, and had I been able to ask him that question, it would have been, "Are you crazy all the way up there?" I went to work. I shot as much of the fire gun as I could without using the ladder, but when I had pinned everything at eye level twice, I couldn't put off the inevitable any longer. It was time to climb. And climb I did, shaking, trembling, and wondering why the hell I had committed myself to this. I could hear my dad's voice in my head. "Julie, you wouldn't last 2 days at my job." At this rate, I didn't think I was going to make it until lunch. An hour and 45 minutes later, Joe returned to check out my progress. Surprisingly, I got the okay. "Not bad for your first time. You must take after the old man. Come on, I want to show you something." Anything, I thought, as long as it involved being on the ground. Little did I know. Joe and I hopped back into the truck and we headed over to the fermentation lab. As we approached our destination, my senses were overcome with a pungent odor. It was strong enough to sting my eyes, make my stomach cramp. It was foul. I recognized this odor. Traces of this smell could be found on my dad's jacket, his work boots, and the cab of his pickup truck. Joe took me further into the lab, into this area that was beyond hellishly hot. "You see that? Your dad covered that. Looks nice, doesn't it?" Trying to get over the sheer discomfort of the environment,